The old salvage ship landed on the dead moon with a heavy thud. Kang Taiho turned off the engines and looked through the dirty window at the gray rocks outside. Nothing grew here. Nothing lived here. It was the perfect place to hide something that people wanted to forget. Taiho was 34 years old. He had served 12 years in the Korean Space Marines before a piece of metal from an exploding ship had torn through his left leg. The military gave him a medal and sent him home. Now he collected broken ships and sold the parts. It was lonely work, but he preferred it that way. People asked too many questions. The silence of space asked nothing. His scanner had picked up a distress beacon buried somewhere beneath an old Vellani ruin on this moon called Kef 7. The Vellani were an ancient species. They had been traveling between stars when humans were still learning to make fire. Their skin was violet like a sunset, and their eyes glowed soft blue in the darkness. They were beautiful and proud and very cruel to those who broke their laws. Taiho pulled on his environment suit and stepped outside. The gravity here was light, so each step made him bounce a little. He followed the signal from his scanner across a field of broken stones. The ruins looked like they had once been a temple. Tall pillars had fallen. Walls had crumbled. But in the center, a deep hole remained. It went straight down into the darkness. The signal came from inside that hole. Taiho attached a rope to a strong pillar and began climbing down. The hole was narrow at the top, but opened wider as he went deeper. After 20 meters, his boots touched the bottom. He turned on his helmet light and looked around. The pit was circular, maybe 10 meters across. The walls were smooth stone with no way to climb out. Old bones lay scattered in the corners. Some were very old. Some were not. This was a place where people were sent to die. Then he saw her. She lay curled against the far wall. Her violet skin had turned pale gray from lack of sunlight. Her once beautiful hair was tangled and dirty. Her clothes were torn rags. She was so thin that he could see her bones through her skin, but she was breathing. Taiho rushed to her side and knelt down. He touched her shoulder gently. Her eyes opened just a little. They still glowed blue, but the light was weak like a candle about to go out. "Can you hear me?" he asked. She tried to speak, but no sound came. Her lips were cracked and bleeding. Taiho pulled out his water bottle and carefully let a few drops fall into her mouth. She swallowed with difficulty. Then a few more drops. Then a few more. "I am going to get you out of here," he said. "Can you hold on to me?" She had no strength left. So Taiho lifted her in his arms. She weighed almost nothing. He tied the rope around both of them and began the long climb back to the surface. His injured leg screamed with pain, but he did not stop. He had carried wounded soldiers across burning battlefields. He would not fail now. When they reached the surface, the weak sunlight touched her face. She closed her eyes against the brightness. Taiho carried her across the rocks to his ship. Inside, he laid her on his own bed and connected her to the medical machine. The machine began pumping fluids and nutrients into her body. For 3 days she slept. Taiho stayed by her side as much as he could. He cleaned her face with warm water. He brushed the tangles from her hair. He spoke to her even though she could not hear him. He told her about Earth, about the mountains in Korea where he grew up, about his grandmother who made the best soup in their village. On the 4th day, her eyes opened fully for the first time. "Where am I?" she whispered. Her voice was rough from not being used for so long. "You are safe," Taiho said. "You are on my ship. We left that moon 2 days ago." She tried to sit up, but fell back from weakness. "You should not have taken me. They will come for you now." "Who will come?" "The hunters." "I was placed in the Infertility pit by order of Elder Consul Mivith. It is punishment for my crimes. No one is allowed to interfere." Taiho brought her a cup of warm broth. What was your crime? She took the cup with shaking hands. I spoke against him. I told the people that he was letting the common families die while saving medicine for the nobles. For this, I was declared unworthy of continuing my bloodline. The pit ensures I will never have children. I was supposed to die there. How long were you in that hole? 3 months. Taiho felt anger burn in his chest. 3 months alone in darkness. 3 months without food or clean water. 3 months waiting to die. That is not justice, he said. That is murder. She looked at him with something like wonder in her glowing eyes. No alien has ever interfered with our punishment rituals. Why did you save me? Taiho thought about the question. He remembered all the people he could not save during the war. Friends who died in his arms. Civilians caught in the crossfire. He remembered promising himself that he would never again walk away from someone who needed help. Because I could, he said simply. Because leaving someone to die when you can save them is wrong. I do not care what species you are or what laws you broke. You did not deserve that pit. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, My name is Yira. I am daughter of House Veleth, though that name means nothing now. My house has been erased from the records. I am Kang Taiho. I have no house. Just this ship and too many bad memories. Yira almost smiled. You are strange, Kang Taiho. My people believe that humans are primitive, violent, lacking in culture and wisdom. But you show me kindness when my own people left me to rot. Maybe being primitive is not so bad, Taiho said. We primitives have a saying. What does not kill you makes you stronger. You survived 3 months in hell. That makes you the strongest person I have ever met. Yira drank the rest of her broth. Already, a little color was returning to her skin. The violet was coming back. Her eyes glowed a little brighter. What will you do with me now? She asked. First, I will make you healthy again. Then, you can decide what you want to do. I will take you wherever you wish to go. You give me a choice? Of course. Your life belongs to you, not to me, not to any elder or consul. You. Yira stared at him for a long time. In her whole life, no one had ever spoken to her like this. On Villani worlds, females of noble houses were told what to do from birth until death. Choice was a luxury they were never given. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you, Kang Taiho. He nodded and stood up. Rest now. We have a long journey ahead. As he walked to the cockpit to check their course, Yura watched him go. Something strange was happening inside her body. Something she could not explain. Her heart was beating faster than it should. Her skin felt warm. When he had touched her hand, she felt a spark that had nothing to do with static electricity. She did not understand it yet. But her body was telling her that this human was different. This human was important. She closed her eyes and slept, dreaming of things she had never dared to dream before. The medical station floated in the empty space between 2 solar systems. It belonged to no government and followed no laws except one. Everyone who came here seeking help would receive it, no matter who they were or what they had done. The woman who ran it had made that promise long ago, and she had never broken it. Dr. Han Yunji was waiting at the docking bay when Taiho's ship arrived. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. During the Frontier Wars, she had served as the chief medical officer on the same battleship where Taiho fought. She had saved his life twice. He had saved hers once. That created a bond that would never break. You look terrible, she said as Taiho stepped off a ship. You look beautiful as always, he replied. She laughed and punched his shoulder. Still a liar. Now show me this patient you told me about. Taiho led her inside. Yira was sitting up now, wrapped in a blanket. 2 weeks of proper food and medicine had brought back much of her strength. Her violet skin was bright again. Her eyes glowed with life. But she was still thin, and she tired easily. Yunji studied her with professional interest. Vallani. I have never treated one before. They usually refuse human medicine. I am not a usual Vallani, Ira said quietly. Over the next 3 days, Yunji ran every test her machines could perform. She took blood samples, tissue samples, and genetic samples. She scanned Ira from head to toe. She asked hundreds of questions about Vallani biology, history, and culture. Ira answered them all. On the 4th day, Yunji called them both to her office. Her face was serious, but her eyes were bright with excitement. I have found something remarkable, she said. Something that could change everything. She turned on a holographic display. Complex patterns of light filled the air between them. This is Vallani DNA, she explained. It is beautiful and ancient. Your species has been evolving for over 200,000 years. But there is a problem. We know about the problem, Ira said sadly. Our people are dying. Fewer children are born each generation. Our doctors do not know why. I know why, Yunji said. She changed the display. Your gene pool has become too narrow. For thousands of years, your noble houses have controlled breeding. They only allowed certain bloodlines to mix with certain other bloodlines. They thought they were making your species stronger. Instead, they made it weaker. Your DNA has lost its diversity. Your immune systems are failing. Your fertility is dropping. Within 300 years, at current rates, the Vallani will be extinct. Yara looked like she had been struck. Is there no cure? Yunji smiled and changed the display again. This is human DNA. Look at it. It is messy. It is chaotic. It is full of random variations and mutations. By Vallani standards, we are genetic garbage. She laughed at her own words. But that chaos is also our greatest strength. Human DNA is incredibly adaptable. We can survive almost anything because our genes are always changing, always finding new solutions. She brought both displays together. The Vallani patterns and the human patterns overlapped in ways that made them both gasp. This should be impossible, Yunji whispered. But human DNA has compatibility markers that match Vallani genetics perfectly. No other species in the galaxy has this. It is like your species and our species were designed to fit together. Yira leaned forward. What does this mean? It means that human genes could repair your damaged gene pool. Human DNA could give your children the diversity they need to survive. Human and Vallani could produce offspring that combine the best of both species. The room was silent. Taiho and Yira looked at each other. Neither knew what to say. I must be honest with you, Yunji continued. This is just theory. No human and Vallani have ever tried to have children together. We do not know if it is truly possible. We do not know what such children would look like or how long they would live. There are many questions and very few answers. Yira stood up and walked to the window. She looked out at the stars for a long time. Taiho watched her but did not speak. This was her decision to make. Finally, she turned around. My people condemned me. They threw me in a pit to die. They erased my family's name from history. I owe them nothing. She paused. But they are still my people. The children who will never be born because of the fertility crisis did nothing wrong. The young ones who are watching their elders die have committed no crimes. If there is a chance I can help save them, how can I refuse? You do not have to decide anything right now, Taiho said gently. I know. She walked closer to him. But I need to ask you something important. This discovery means nothing without a human partner. Without you. She looked into his eyes. I am not asking you to answer now. I am only asking you to think about it. Would you consider helping me? Helping my people? Taiho was quiet for a long moment. He thought about his life. He had spent so many years alone, running from his memories, hiding from his pain. He had told himself that he wanted nothing except silence and solitude. But when he had lifted Yura from that pit, something had changed inside him. For the first time in years, he had felt like his life had purpose again. "I will think about it," he said. Yura nodded. "That is all I ask." That night, Taiho could not sleep. He walked the empty corridors of the station, looking out at the endless stars. He thought about his parents, who had died hoping he would give them grandchildren. He thought about the soldiers who had died under his command, trusting him to lead them home. He thought about all the things he had lost and all the chances he had wasted. And he thought about Yura, her strength, her courage, the way she smiled even after suffering for so long, the warm feeling he got whenever she was near. When morning came, he found her eating breakfast in the station's small cafeteria. He sat down across from her. "I have made my decision," he said. Yra put down her spoon. Her hands were trembling slightly. "I do not want to do this as a medical experiment," Taiho said. "I do not want to be a donor or a specimen. If we do this, I want to do it properly." "What do you mean?" "I mean that I want to know you. I want to spend time with you. I want to learn about your culture and teach you about mine. If we are going to bring children into this galaxy, I want those children to have parents who truly care for each other, not strangers who met in a laboratory." Yura's eyes filled with tears. But she was smiling. "You continue to surprise me, Kang Taiho. Is that a yes?" She reached across the table and took his hand. "Yes, it is yes." At that moment, Yoonji rushed into the cafeteria. Her face was pale with worry. "We have a problem," she said. "I just intercepted a transmission from the Vellani Dominion. Elder Consul Mivith has learned that Yura survived. He has sent hunters to find her and finish what the pit could not." Taiho's expression hardened. The soldier inside him woke up after years of sleep. "Then we need to run," he said. "And we need to run fast." He squeezed Yura's hand once, then stood up. "Get your things. We leave in 1 hour." As he walked toward his ship, his mind was already planning their next move. He had protected soldiers in the worst battles of the frontier wars. He had fought against impossible odds and survived. Now he had something new to protect. Someone worth fighting for, and he would not fail. 5 years had passed since the Battle of Shepherd's Reach. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. On the Vellani homeworld, the ancient council chambers were filled with new faces. The elder councils had been dissolved after Mivith's crimes were revealed. A new government had formed, led by younger Vellani who believed in hope instead of fear. They called themselves the Reformation, and their first act had been to open diplomatic relations with the human coalition. Their second act had been to invite Yura home. She stood now in the grand hall of the Vellani capital, dressed in robes that would have been forbidden to her 5 years ago. She was no longer a criminal. She was Ambassador Yura of the new Vellani government, the official representative to humanity. The woman who had been thrown into a pit to die was now the bridge between two civilizations. The ceremony today was to celebrate the 1,000th Human Vellani Union. 1,000 couples from both species had chosen to join their lives together. 1,000 families had been formed. 1,000 new bloodlines were beginning. Yra looked out at the crowd filling the hall. Humans and Vellani sat together, their colors mixed like flowers in a garden. Children ran between the seats, some with violet skin and glowing eyes, some with human features, some with beautiful combinations of both. The sound of laughter filled the ancient stones. She saw her own children in the front row. Cyril was 12 now, tall and graceful, with a talent for languages that amazed everyone who met her. She was already learning her fifth alien tongue. People said she would be a great diplomat someday. The twins, Minho and Junho, were 10 years old and inseparable. They had inherited their father's protective instinct. At school, they stood up for smaller children who were being bullied. They never started fights, but they finished them. Nari was 8, quiet and thoughtful, always reading or drawing. She created beautiful art that combined Vellani patterns with human expressions. Her teachers said she saw the world differently than others, and that was her gift. Dahyun was 7, the friendliest child anyone had ever met. He made friends with everyone, regardless of species or background. Strangers became companions within minutes of meeting him. Jusu was 5, with eyes so bright she could navigate in complete darkness. She was fearless, always climbing to high places and exploring where she was not supposed to go. She gave her parents many sleepless nights, but also many proud moments. Hanuel was 4, already taking apart machines to see how they worked. He had disassembled the family communication device 3 times before his father finally gave him old equipment to practice on. And little Yuno was 3, the smallest but perhaps the strongest of all. She had been born weak, but she had grown into a stubborn, determined child who refused to give up on anything. 8 children, 8 bridges between species, 8 reasons to believe that the future would be better than the past. Yura finished her speech and the crowd applauded. Later, there would be a feast and celebration. But first, she had somewhere else to be. She traveled by private transport to a small agricultural planet on the edge of Coalition space. It was not an important world by galactic standards. No great cities, no famous monuments, no strategic value. Just fields of grain and orchards of fruit trees and small villages where people lived simple, honest lives. She found Taiho in their garden, teaching Hanuel how to fix a water pump. His hair had more gray in it now, and new scars marked his hands. But his eyes were the same as they had been on the day they met. Calm, kind, strong. He looked up when she approached and smiled. That smile still made her heart beat faster, even after all these years. "How was the ceremony?" he asked. "Beautiful. They asked about you again. They wanted you to receive the Medal of Unity." Taiho shook his head. "I have enough medals. They just collect dust." Yura laughed. She had known he would say that. Her husband had never wanted fame or glory. He wanted only this: his family, his garden, his quiet life under an open sky. The other children came running when they saw their mother. She hugged each one, asking about their days, listening to their stories. Sira had passed her language exam. The twins had built a fort in the woods. Nari had finished a new painting. Each child had something to share. That night, after the children were asleep, Yura and Taiho sat on the porch of their farmhouse. The sky was full of stars, each one a sun that might have planets, each planet that might have people looking up at the same stars. "Do you ever regret it?" Yura asked. It was a question she had asked before, many times. The answer was always the same, but she still needed to hear it. Regret what? Saving me. Choosing this life. Giving up your solitude for chaos and children and responsibility. Taiho was quiet for a moment. He looked up at the stars, then at his wife, then at the house where his children slept. "I used to believe that I was meant to be alone," he said slowly. "I thought that my purpose ended when the war ended. I was just waiting to die without admitting it." He took her hand in his. "Then I found you in that pit. Broken but not defeated. Abandoned but not destroyed. And I realized the purpose does not end. It changes. It evolves. It finds new forms." He squeezed her hand gently. "My purpose now is you. Our children. This family we built from nothing. I have never regretted a single moment of it. Not one." Yura leaned her head against his shoulder. "The Vellani have a saying. The past is a pit we climb out of. The future is a sky we fly toward. That is beautiful. I never understood it until I met you. You pulled me out of the pit. You showed me the sky. They sat together in comfortable silence. Somewhere in the fields, night insects sang their songs. The stars turned slowly overhead, indifferent to the small dramas of the beings below. But those small dramas mattered. One man's choice to help a stranger had changed the destiny of 2 species. One woman's courage to hope had lit a fire that would burn for generations. In the years to come, Sira would become the greatest diplomat the galaxy had ever seen, negotiating peace between species that had fought for centuries. Minho and Junho would create a new order of protectors, human and Vellani working together to defend the innocent. Nari's art would hang in museums on 100 worlds. Dohyun would build schools where children of all species learned together. Jisoo would explore places no one had ever been. Haniel would design ships that traveled faster than anyone thought possible. Yuna would lead the next generation of the Reformation, carrying her mother's vision forward. But tonight they were just children sleeping in their beds, dreaming of adventures to come. And their parents sat on a porch, holding hands, watching the stars. "Thank you," Ira whispered. "For what?" "For everything. For not walking past that pit. For carrying me when I could not walk. For giving me children and a home and a future I never dared to imagine." Taiho turned to look at her. Her eyes glowed soft blue in the darkness. She was still the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. "You saved me too," he said. "You gave me a reason to live again. We saved each other." Ira smiled. "Then I suppose we are even." "I suppose we are." They kissed under the starlight, 2 people from different worlds who had found each other against all odds. Behind them, the house was full of sleeping children. Ahead of them, the future was full of possibilities. The galaxy was vast and old and full of wonders. But the greatest wonder of all was simply this: 2 hearts beating together. 2 lives woven into one. That was enough. That would always be enough. 2 years passed like water flowing through open fingers. Taiho and Yura moved from place to place, never staying anywhere too long. They lived on frontier worlds where questions were not asked. They hid among human colonies where Vellani hunters did not dare to search openly. And slowly, carefully, they built a life together. At first, they were 2 strangers bound by circumstance. Taiho taught Yura how to repair engines and cook human food. Yura taught Taiho the Vellani language and the history of her people. They shared meals together. They watched stars together. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. Friendship became something deeper. Respect became affection. Affection became love. One night, on a small farming planet at the edge of known space, Taiho asked Yura to marry him. He had no ring to give her. He had no grand words to say. He simply took her hands in his and asked if she would stay with him forever. She said yes before he finished asking. They married under an open sky, with 3 moons shining above them. A local farmer served as witness. There was no music except the wind in the wheat fields. There was no feast except bread and honey shared between them. But neither of them wanted more. They had each other. That was enough. 6 months after their wedding, their first child was born. Dr. Han Yoonji traveled in secret to help with the delivery. She had been monitoring Yura's pregnancy through encrypted communications, marveling at how well the hybrid biology was developing. But nothing prepared her for the moment the baby arrived. The girl had her mother's violet skin, but softer, more like lavender. Her eyes glowed blue like a Vellani, but they had her father's shape. She had 10 fingers and 10 toes. 2 hearts, like all Vellani, but lungs that could breathe almost any atmosphere. She was beautiful beyond words. They named her Kangsira. "She is perfect," Yoonji whispered, running her scanners over the newborn. "Her immune system is remarkable. She has the best traits of both species. If the readings are correct, she could live for 300 years or more. Yura held her daughter close and wept with joy. Taiho sat beside them, his hand on Yura's shoulder, unable to speak. All his life, he had destroyed things. He had been a weapon, a soldier, a dealer in broken machinery. Now, for the first time, he had helped create something pure and good. Over the next months, word of the birth spread through secret channels. Yoonji had contacts among scientists across the galaxy. They contacted other scientists. Those scientists contacted others. Soon, the story of the human Vellani hybrid child reached ears that were eager to listen. Young Vellani families, desperate to have children of their own, began reaching out. They had tried everything the elders allowed. Nothing worked. Their species was still dying. If there was even a small chance that humans could help, they wanted to try. But there was danger in this hope. Elder Consul Mivith also heard the rumors. He could not allow this discovery to spread. If common Vellani learned that humans could save their species, they would question why the Elder Councils had failed. They would demand change. And Mivith would lose everything. He doubled the number of hunters searching for Yura. He put a price on Taiho's head high enough to tempt even the most honest bounty hunter. He declared that any Vellani who sought human help would be thrown into the pits themselves. But fear could not stop Hope Dot in their second year together. Yura gave birth again. Twins this time. 2 boys with bright violet skin and their father's stubborn jawline. They named them Kang Minho and Kang Junho. The boys were healthy and strong, crying loudly as if announcing to the galaxy that they had arrived. Taiho looked at his growing family and felt something he had not felt since before the war. He felt happy. Truly, deeply happy. They moved again, this time to a water world where they lived on a floating house that drifted between islands. Syrah took her first steps on the wooden deck, chasing small fish that jumped from the waves. The twins learned to swim before they learned to walk. Yura's laughter filled the salt air like music. 2 more children came. A daughter named Kang Nari, who had her mother's grace and her father's quiet strength. A son named Kando Yun, who smiled at everyone and feared nothing. Dr. Han Yoonji visited whenever she could, bringing supplies and news from the wider galaxy. The news was mixed. Many Vellani were questioning their elder councils openly now. Underground networks were forming, helping young couples escape to human territories. But the crackdowns were getting worse. Families were being punished. People were disappearing. Mivith is scared, Yoonji explained during one visit. Scared leaders do terrible things. 3 more children came over the following years. Kang Jisu, a daughter with eyes that glowed so bright she could see in complete darkness. Kang Hanuel, a son who loved machines as much as his father. And the last, Kang Yuna, who was born small but grew stronger every day. 8 children. 8 miracles. Taeho sometimes sat at night, watching his children sleep, and wondered how his life had changed so completely. He had been a broken man hiding in the darkness of space. Now he was a father of 8, a husband to a woman he loved more than life itself. Yura would find him there and sit beside him. "What are you thinking?" she would ask. "I am thinking that I do not deserve this happiness," he would reply. "Nobody deserves happiness," she would say, leaning her head on his shoulder. "Happiness is not a reward. It is a gift. The only thing we can do is accept it and protect it." But protection was becoming harder. The hunters were getting closer. Twice they had to flee in the middle of the night, packing children and belongings into the ship while strange vessels approached. Twice they barely escaped. Syrah was 7 years old now. She understood that they were running from bad people. She asked her father why. Taeho knelt down to look into his daughter's glowing eyes. There are some people who are afraid of anything new or different, he explained. They think that the old ways are the only ways. They would rather watch the future die than let it change. Will they hurt us? They will try, but I will not let them. Promise? Taiho hugged his daughter tight. I promise. It was a promise he intended to keep. But he knew he could not run forever. Sooner or later, he would have to stand and fight. He began reaching out to old friends, old soldiers, old allies from the frontier wars. He began calling in favors he had saved for years. One night, a message arrived from Lieutenant Beek Jian, his former commanding officer. She was still active in the Galactic Coalition military, and she had access to information that most people never saw. Miviv has assembled a fleet, her message said. 12 warships. He is coming for you personally. He wants to destroy your family and everyone who helped you. He wants to make an example that will silence all opposition forever. Taiho read the message 3 times. Then he walked to the window and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, an army was coming to kill his wife and children. He was not afraid. He had faced armies before, but this time he had something worth fighting for. And that made all the difference. He turned to Yira, who had read the message over his shoulder. Her face was calm but determined. What do we do? She asked. Taiho took a deep breath. We stop running. We gather our friends. And we make them regret ever coming after us. Yira nodded slowly. Then she smiled, and her smile was fierce. The hunters think they are chasing a helpless refugee. They do not know they are chasing the wife of a Korean space marine. They will learn, Taiho said. They will learn. The message went out across 100 worlds. It traveled through secret channels and encrypted networks. It reached old soldiers in quiet retirement and young fighters still burning for purpose. It was simple and direct, just like the man who sent it. This is Kan Taiho. I need help. Come to Shepherd's Reach. They came. First came Beek Jian herself, arriving in a fast cruiser with 20 volunteers from her current command. They were soldiers who believed in doing what was right, even when orders said otherwise. Jian had not changed since the war. Her hair was shorter, her rank was higher, but her eyes still burned with the same fire. I should arrest you for what you are about to do, she told Taiho when they met. But you will not. No, I will not. She smiled. Someone has to teach those Villani that they cannot bully everyone. Then came Admiral Choi Dong-hyun, retired but not forgotten. He arrived in his private frigate, a warship he had bought with his pension and kept ready for exactly this kind of situation. 70 years old, with white hair and a back bent by age, he still commanded his bridge with an iron voice. I spent my whole career following rules, he told Taiho. Now I am free to follow my conscience. Show me where to point my guns. Then came the others. Mercenaries who owed Taiho their lives. Engineers who had served under him during the war. Pilots, gunners, medics, hackers. They came in small ships and large ships, in cruisers and fighters and converted cargo haulers. 50 vessels in total, crewed by men and women who had answered the call. Shepherd's Reach was a small moon orbiting a gas giant at the edge of Coalition space. It had been a military outpost during the frontier wars, abandoned after the peace. Its old defensive systems were damaged but not destroyed. Its docking bays could hold a fleet. Taiho gathered everyone in the main hangar. His family stood beside him. Yira held the youngest children while the older ones watched with wide eyes. This was the first time Sarah had seen so many ships in one place. Thank you all for coming, Taiho said. I will not lie to you. The enemy has 12 warships. We have 50 vessels, but most of them are smaller and weaker. On paper, we cannot win this battle. No one spoke. No one left. But we have advantages they do not expect. We have people who have fought together before. We have people who know how to think instead of just follow orders. And we have something worth protecting." He looked at his children. "They are coming to destroy the future. We will not let them." Admiral Choi stepped forward. "I have studied Vellani military doctrine. They are predictable. They believe in formation and order and following the plan even when the plan is failing. They do not adapt well to chaos." "Then we give them chaos," Jian said. They spent 3 days preparing. Engineers repaired what they could of the old defense systems. Pilots practiced flying in tight formation through the asteroid fields nearby. Hackers prepared electronic attacks to blind and confuse the enemy. Everyone knew their role. On the 4th day, the Vellani fleet arrived. 12 warships emerged from faster than light, travel and arranged themselves in perfect formation. They were beautiful ships, elegant and deadly, their purple hulls gleaming in the light of the distant sun. At the center flew the flagship, the largest vessel in the fleet. This was where Elder Consul Miveth commanded. He sent a message to the defenders. His face appeared on every screen, cold and proud. "Criminals of Shepherd's Reach," he said. "You harbor a traitor to the Vellani people and abominations that should never have been born. Surrender them to us, and you may live. Resist, and you will be destroyed." Taiho answered him. "You left a woman to die in a hole for speaking the truth. You are letting your own people go extinct because you are afraid of change. You are not justice. You are a coward with a fleet. And cowards always lose in the end." Miveth's face twisted with rage. "Then you choose death. All ships, attack." The battle began. The Vellani fleet moved forward in perfect lines, firing their weapons in coordinated waves. But the human defenders did not wait to be shot. They scattered like birds before a storm, breaking into small groups that flew in every direction. The enemy had no single target to hit. Admiral Choi's frigate led 3 cruisers in a flanking attack on the left side of the Vellani formation. They used the asteroids as cover, appearing suddenly to fire, then vanishing again before the enemy could respond. One Vellani ship took heavy damage to its engines and fell behind. Jian commanded the fighters. 50 small craft swarmed around the larger Vellani vessels, targeting their weapons and sensors. They were mosquitoes against elephants, but mosquitoes that drew blood. Another Vellani ship went blind when its sensor arrays were destroyed. The hackers launched their attack. Suddenly, 3 Vellani ships began receiving false orders. They turned in the wrong direction, crashed into each other's firing lines, confused and vulnerable. A human cruiser exploited the opening and destroyed one of them completely, but the Vellani were not helpless. Their weapons were powerful and their ships were tough. One human cruiser vanished in a ball of fire when a Vellani beam cut through its reactor. 2 fighters collided while dodging enemy fire. Another ship lost power and drifted helplessly until a Vellani gunner ended it. Taiho watched the battle from the command center on the moon's surface. His children had been taken to the deepest bunker, protected by the strongest walls. Yura stood beside him, watching the tactical display with fierce concentration. "It is time," she said. Ho nodded. He turned to his remaining crew. "Launch the boarding ships. I am going after Miveth personally." 4 small assault craft flew toward the Vellani flagship. They dodged enemy fire through luck and skill. 3 of them were destroyed, but one made it through. It crashed into the flagship's hull and cut through the metal with emergency torches. Taiho led the boarding party. 15 men and women with guns and determination. They fought through corridors filled with enemy soldiers. They took casualties at every turn. But they did not stop. Ho found Miveth on the bridge. The elder consul stood behind his guards, certain that his soldiers would protect him. But Taiho had not survived the frontier wars by being gentle. The fight was brutal and short. When it ended, only Taiho was still standing. He was wounded in 3 places, bleeding heavily, but he did not fall. Miveth backed against the wall, his proud face showing fear for the first time. "You cannot kill me. I am an elder consul of the Vellani Dominion. There will be consequences." Taiho lowered his weapon. "I am not going to kill you. I am going to do something worse. I am going to show everyone who you really are." He pulled out a data device and connected it to the ship's communication system. Information began broadcasting to every Vellani world. Evidence that Yunji and other allies had gathered over years. Proof of Miveth's corruption. Records showing that he had hoarded fertility treatments for nobles while common families died childless. Documents proving that he had known about the human compatibility solution and buried it. To protect his power, the truth spread like fire across the galaxy. On Vellani worlds, people watched in horror. Young families who had grieved for children they could never have learned that help had been available all along. Soldiers who had followed Miveth's orders learned they had been protecting a monster. The anger was immediate and total. The remaining Vellani ships stopped fighting. Their captains demanded explanations from their leader. When they did not receive them, they surrendered. Miveth was taken prisoner by his own people. The hunters who had chased Yura for years put down their weapons. The battle was over. In the command center, Yura collapsed into a chair, tears streaming down her face. It was not sadness. It was relief. Years of running, years of hiding, years of fear had finally ended. Taiho's voice came through the communication system. He was alive. Wounded, but alive. "It is finished," he said. "We won." Across the galaxy, a new era was beginning. And it had started with one man who refused to leave a stranger to die in a pit.